p.m., everyone. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. We are back at it after the halving, and it's been an interesting 2 3 days. It's had some highs. It's definitely had some lows. We definitely recognize there's a lot more infrastructure we need, but hey, we think we made Bitcoin a little bit more fun, right? With the introduction of, again, another meta token protocol in the form of runes. But at the same time, it didn't meet full expectations, and we'll talk about that. And there's actually some bullish stuff even when it doesn't meet expectations. And hopefully that'll kind of give us a little bit more insight on how this future is going to play out. But really, we'll use this conversation to understand, are we bullish or bearish on runes? Are we bullish or bearish on ordinals? And are we bullish or bearish on Bitcoin? And we'll kind of walk through that framework here over the next hour or so to get a better understanding of what happened in the halving. So let's kind of go through, and we'll do this as a brief recap of just like some of the key details. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask them here. Definitely within chat. Really, our goal is to make sure you kind of understand everything that happened with the halving. So let's kind of go directly into it here at the moment right now, right? The halving ended up occurring a little bit earlier than most people expected. It still occurred on 420 if you're in Central European time, but for those of us who are in the West, specifically in North and South America, it happened on April 19th for us here at the moment right now. And what was kind of interesting is that kind of this was a block that a lot of us were anticipating, but it didn't play out in the way we were hoping. And let me talk about that here in just a moment. Really, what we want to understand is that the halving happened 384 blocks ago. We're currently just past 840,384. Let's go back to what happened on 840,000. So I'm going to go all the way back, 300 or so in almost 400 or so back in time. And we'll see this gold block show up. This is the halving block. So as we were leading into the halving block, it was kind of a little bit, like quiet. We were all trying to figure out what was going to happen because we were all expecting it to get crazy, right? And many people were telling you, that initial halving block, including myself, was going to be well over 1,000 sats, if not a couple thousand sats. And we were all wrong because the halving ended up coming, and what became pretty interesting is that it kind of caught us off guard. If you're here live during the session, the block kind of happened and kind of got confirmed in just a few minutes. And what ends up being crazy here is that the actual overall block only had an average of 200 sats in it. There were definitely some massively gassed up actions in that in order to get early runes committed. But the insane thing here was that essentially you were able, if you timed it correctly, to get pretty affordable early runes. But when I say affordable, I don't mean the top 5, because the top 5 ended up paying a lot of money. And let's talk about really quickly how much they paid. Well, we can go to the bottom of this block and go down here to see what was being paid. And what we ended up seeing is that who won number 1, Rune, paid 3.6 million sats at $432,000. Right? It was an insane amount to get number 1. But here's the crazy thing. Number 2 paid 3.575 million sats, but it was a slightly higher virtual size for their asset. This cost them $500,000. And then number 3 ended up paying around $187,000 to be able to claim that rune. And again, as you go further down this list, you can see what other people are paying for. Paying for their exact, their rune fees. And what was pretty interesting is that, in order to get to the top 10, it really only cost about $10,000, $15,000. There was actually one team that got a top 10 rune for $404, right? Which is kind of crazy, right? And that was meme economics, and we'll talk about that here. And what was surprising is, like I said, this block ended up catching a lot of people off guard. And because it caught a lot of people off guard, it kind of created a pretty insane amount of what the fuck do we do now? Right? Because what ended up happening was is that we were hoping that when the Rune protocol opened, there would be this crazy, like, let's go grab and mint runes left and right. But this is kind of where the first twist in the halving came. And that twist was the fact that majority of the early top 10, if not top 100 runes were essentially pre-mined completely, meaning that they weren't available to the public. What I mean by that is if we look here now on Luminex, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, number 12 here in this list here, which we can see, sorry, all the way to 11, did not have any pre-mine availability there. There were 2 that were available to be pre-mined in a meaningful amount or somewhat close to a fair-ish launch, would be Satoshi Nakamoto, but the team did pre-mine 20%, right? And then we had Meme Economics, where again, the team did mine 20%. So those are kind of where we saw the closest fairest launches early on. But then we got thrown into a twist. The twist number 1 was whoever won rune number 1. So for example, we already know rune 0 is hard-coded by Casey. This is called uncommon goods. Any of us can etch it. Some of us have, especially since fees have gotten lower, but realistically, this is open for 4 years. So unless you believe that fees have not hit their all-time low, right, you can wait. If you believe that fees will come back down, there's a good chance you can get uncommon goods in the future. It truly is Rune 0, but the crazy thing is that this won't have price action for like 4 years, right? We're waiting till the next halving when it closes. Then uncommon goods is going to get nuts. That's a long ass wait. So that's like twist number 1 that we already knew about Rune 0. So it really didn't come into play. It got some mints, don't get me wrong, but there's no rush. You could all throw mints into here as you want, because as you can see, mint ends in 209,616 blocks. So that's essentially block number 1,050,000, which is essentially 4 years from now, roughly, right? So that was kind of the first twist. The second twist is we didn't know who won rune number 1 for a long time. I mean, we still really don't know what this is. They chose a really weird ticker. They could have done a lot of other stuff, but they ended up using like this letter Z as a filler for their name Fihu. Many of us thought this could have been Fihu Layer 2 protocol. Ends up not being. There's a total different project doing this. And again, we still don't know a lot of details on it. And then here's the crazy thing. They pre-mined 99% of the supply, and there's still left 1% of the supply, which still means that there's technically 1 million mints available, right? Or 1 million and change mints available. Because what they crazily made it is that when you, like, we could click into this here real quick, what you can see is you literally only get 1 of these Fehu runes per mint. So you have to spend a decent amount to get rune number 1, and it has one of the weirdest economics we've ever seen with 99% pre-mine. Yet, because of the provenance, people are still going after it. I even grabbed a few. I now have like 10 on a couple of wallets for Fehu. Especially when fees went down, it was a lot more affordable. But it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Like, who wants to buy into a 99% pre-mine? Technically, I guess we all are, because they won provenance, right? So that became pretty interesting. But as we kind of expand, what we end up seeing here is a few things. One is we see Decentralized. This is the team behind from Cyberkongs and Prometheans. They ended up winning rune number 2. We then have Rune Stone and Leonidas winning number 3. That's Dog Go to the Moon. We have 4 is Runic Token by BVM. This one's a little interesting because they already have a token being traded on the ETH side of the equation. I forget what chain it's on. It's on, but you could trade it on Uniswap. And they also have something called a miner out there as well. So this is a little bit interesting. Number 6 is dog, 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 and I still don't think we know exactly who has this one. And that's kind of the crazy thing because this person also has like 3 more with like even more dogs in the name. All they did is repeat it dog, 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 dog. And it's crazy. They got an early rune, but almost no details have come out for this here as well, right? So then what you end up recognizing really quickly here, right, is that this market's been a little bit harder to kind of figure out, as we look at all these details because not all of these winners have been noted, right? But then Satoshi Nakamoto and Meme Economics being somewhat open mints, they were 20% pre-mine. They have been listed. Yeah, both of them have been listed, and we'll talk about that here shortly, which is why it's bullish. The other bullish thing we saw was that Arsic Genesis Rune ends up winning number 8, which is great for them as they kind of become one of the largest market cap leaders, and we'll talk about that here shortly. Number 9 goes to Lobo the Wolf Pup. This is the Rune Doors team at the moment right now. So they were able to get that, and they're right now pumping that. So those are kind of the initial sub 10, which many people consider to have very deep provenance, right? So I think this is kind of where it's interesting is now where does this buying pressure go? Well, because some of these were so pre-mined, it became pretty interesting where it opened up a little bit more opportunities. Even as we go to the next like 12, we see almost all of them are pre-mined except one, which is Short the World, which is a clearly a bad ticker. And that's kind of what we learned from this experience is that people were just really bad at creating ticker symbols. But the ones that started to get a little bit of value, right? They started to kind of push a little bit, and we'll talk about that here now. So on day one, it was a lot slower. It was not as expected in terms of like there was a lot more like unknowns and chaos, right? It's like who won what do we ape, where do we go? And the whole meta was supposed to be like we all go ape rune number 1. But the way rune number 1 created its weird economics, it didn't make it bullish anymore. So the market never had a clear shelling point, right? And that's kind of what made it really slow, right? Is that no one knew who actually won or what the market was going to value. So it took a little bit more time to shake out. But as it shook out over the weekend, the winners started to emerge and unlikely winners started to emerge because, welcome to crypto and memes. So over the weekend, and this was just posted by or.io, and I'll share this again here within the chat. What we now see is that there are really meaningful market caps that are now opened up. We now see that Arsic Genesis Rune, shout out to them. They didn't do a mint. They did one of the most expensive airdrops ever. These guys, when fees were pretty high over the weekend, airdropped this through and spent $500,000 to get this into thousands of people's hands, right? Really impressive stuff. I give them a lot of credit. They were the first to airdrop, first to deploy on a fully pre-mined rune and getting it into the hands of their users, and it's really rewarded them. They were trading at a pre-market cap sub 100 million. It was around 75 to 85 million dollars. And we can see as it converted from their ordinal into a rune, it's jumped up quite a bit. Arsic, now the leader in market cap, is trading at over $300 million, which is really bullish. They're really the first to kind of maintain and break above 100 million. There are a few who broke it above 100 million at different times here, but Arsic is by far the first leader, right? Outside of that, we see Satoshi Nakamoto doing really well. But if you actually want to look at who was the profit winner, if you were able to get mints in, it was Wenko Menko Runes, right? If you're ready for this, Wenko Menko Rune. Wenko Menko Runes is a meme story from Casey Rodimer's blog a while ago. Someone put it in, and long story short, it's a story about a furry that wants to have sex. I don't even know, man. I have not read it. And of course, yep, it's the one we all faded. It is very interestingly weird. What was cool though, I'll give them credit on it on their mint, was that they used the feature to be able to allow a starting block and a closing block for mints. So if you actually go look at Wenko Menko runes, I hate saying that over and over and over again, but let's go look at Wenko Menko runes. Oh, wait, why doesn't Wenko show up? Did I spell it wrong? What? Wenko. Oh, I'm on the second page. That's why. Huh. Okay, Wenko Menko runes. As you can see, this is the one we're talking about here. Sub 1,000 token, whatever that may be, mean in value. There was about 7,500 mints, 2,100 holders, and when you see this graph, you think that more are available to mint, right? But the answer is no. They actually closed the mint block, 300 blocks ago. It closed at 840,094. So it's only open for just a handful of blocks. But what's crazy here is that if you minted this and it probably cost you $100 in gas, right, to maybe a little bit more, within that window per claim, you would have gotten 10,000 Wanko Manko runes per claim. And if you were one of the smart people to be able to get that, here's the crazy thing. Wanko Manko runes, if you bought 10,000 of them, they're currently trading at $6,576 or 0.01 BTC. This was a absolute win, right? Which was crazy, right? David CC says you could get 200,000 of these for about $1,000, right? There were quite a few people out here, to say it. Torch said I spent $320 on 50K. He is way up. This was by far the largest outlier of a winner in this market, right? It was 100 to 6,000 roughly, right? Let's just use those numbers for the sake of clarity. Not too bad to get a 60x up in this shit. So this one is one of the first winners in the actual meme side of the equation, and now it's trading on secondary with a very small supply. Very interesting, right? And if we go back, right, we see that Wangamenko is still now the third highest market cap with a very small supply. So it'll be very interesting to see where this is going to go. Right, as I mentioned, we already see Satoshi Nakamoto as a top 10 rune. We also see Meme Economics as a top 10 rune. But there's a large delta here, right? Satoshi Nakamoto's name clearly probably makes it a little bit more valuable. Remember, Satoshi Nakamoto is just one rune ahead of Meme Economics, yet it has almost a 10x higher valuation and market cap. Just showcasing really interesting. One of the very early winners initially was Ticker's Elsa, but that ended up dumping quite a bit, unfortunately. But they did have a little bit of rally here. It will be interesting to see if they'll come up. There's a few other that are kind of moving here. There's Koala and Impala and a few others. But realistically, if you didn't get Satoshi or realistically a Wanko Manko, you've been pretty neutral on a lot of your plays here at the moment right now, right? And this is kind of another major reason of why a lot of people feel runes have been duds, right? No rune realistically that wasn't a pre-rune has cleared 100 million. So what is this showcase right now? Right now it looks like the biggest alpha is pre-runes were the play. Pre-runes are going to be bringing structured holders to have very large market caps, hopefully coordinated to be able to wait until long-term listings here, right? And this is why Arsic is a huge winner. This is why I think Runestones, even though I hate the name Dog Go to the Moon, but I get it, is probably going to be a very large winner. And you're going to see a few more winners. I think Promethean should have some really strong value. And there's people who believe Rune Doors will have a lot of value being a sub 10 rune. And this is probably the first insight that I really want to share with you guys here at the moment right now, is that you should be optimizing for sub 10 runes if you can right now. That's been my biggest focus here at the moment, is just really positioning in the sub 10 number run, the sub 10 runes, right? Meaning single digit rune numbers, essentially 1 through 9, or in this case 2 through 9, since 0 and 1 aren't really worth grabbing at the moment right now, or not deeply worth grabbing at the moment right now. But I do believe that's going to be where you're going to see a lot of provenance and buy pressure here, right? So if you don't have Satoshi Nakamoto, right, or if you don't have access to RSIC, right, you do need to figure out a way to get in, and there's still opportunities, right? Rune Doors is about to do their snapshot. I don't think the snapshot already happened here. So that's kind of now around 0.03, and that would get you access to the rune number 9 alongside a bonus if you still hold Runestone, which is also fascinating. We'll talk about that and Runestone's value post snapshot here too. But essentially, you should be building a top 10 bag, sub 10 rune bag, right? For me, I'm massively over indexed on Runestone and Arsic. I believe those are the two outlier winners in this kind of market. The only one that I would say that's not a top 10 or sub 10 rune, but has really high value is Pups, mainly because of how Pups, right, is gonna kind of scale from their shitcoin, and bringing all three of these tokens together, or three of these assets together under one token. They seem to have a lot of cultural provenance. I'm curious to see how Magic Internet Money kind of picks up, but the clear thing is that due to the lack of a clear shelling point, we're dumbing down to the simplest shelling point, sub 10 runes. It makes the most sense. It probably has the provenance, and this is where it's going to be really bullish. Yep, Runestone already took their snapshot. Runestone's was yesterday. That's why Runestone has dumped 50%, but amazing, it's only dumped 50%, still holding decent value, and we'll talk about that. We expect that, at least Runestones should be airdropping this week based off the conversations. I expect it to happen today and tomorrow. There's no reason for Runestone to be waiting. It's more bearish the longer they wait, because you're letting other people form the valuation of your secondary market, right? In this case, you almost want to ignore like tools like Whales Market at the moment right now, because they have such little volume. They're never going to truly showcase and represent the value of it. So I think Runestone needs to rush out, especially after seeing Arsic success. I also expect Prometheans should be allocating this week. Again, they should be rushing too. With their number 2 provenance here, they need to move really quickly here as well, right? And I think that's going to be really, really bullish here as we kind of get to this next level. If you could see the number 2, number 3 runes out there in the market, alongside a few other more with provenance, it will be really bullish as an opportunity. But what we've seen is that Arsic has really, really, really pushed this forward in a very meaningful way. And now we are racing to who's going to get to a first $1 billion market cap. It should be Runestone. Honestly, it should be Runestone right out the gate. Runestone, based off its valuation and pre-market valuation, if you're going to compare it to Arsic, it should technically balloon to 2 billion. I don't think that's going to be the case, right? Especially at these numbers, it gets harder to kind of get those extrapolations. But I actually do believe Runestone relatively quickly should be around 800 million to $1 billion right after the initial airdrop, right? Mainly for two reasons. One is it's almost hit that market cap purely just on pre-rune evaluation. It almost hit around $800 million at its peak. The other thing that we're also recognizing is most of the buy pressure has yet to come from indexes. Sorry, for like centralized exchanges and indexers. Anyone who wants this kind of opportunity, the biggest upside here is recognizing two fronts. One is realizing that they can actually be an early token with listing advantages is going to be huge. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about where listings are happening and how this market's going to go. But before we go to that, let's just talk about how we interact with this market right now. And most of you already know this. This is how immature we still are. if you're thinking about where do you buy and sell, well, if you want to buy, a lot of people are just using Luminex. And I'll give Luminex credit. This interface is solid. This is exactly what I generally would have wanted for a Rune interface. It is generally simple to mint, etch, and transfer. But there's some weird things where if you do not get your mint in time, you will lose your fees on a mint. I lost a lot on Satoshi and a few others because I did not watch exactly when the blocks cleared. I took it for granted. I waited like 30 seconds from looking at the last block clearing, and in those 30 seconds, another block fully cleared, and I missed out. Again, it wasn't massive. I lost out on like $3,000, right? In just the ability to gas that. But I also lost out on probably like 5K of upside there, right? 8K of upside there as well. And this is kind of where you want to realize the market is going to get really bullish really quickly, right? Because it's so inefficient. And that's a good thing. It's painful right now because this is our buy window, but let's look at our sell window. Oh, we are literally at BRC 20 level tooling here on Unisat right now, which is incredibly boring. The other problem is most people struggle to even know how to split up their rune allocations here. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people are just selling them in these chunks that they receive them in. So on Wenko Manko, it's generally fine because we were minting in these 10,000 sizes, but you should technically be breaking these down into 5,000 or 1,000 chunks to allow more people to enter. But most people didn't know how to do it. So when you go to like the Arctic Genesis runes, you can see this huge problem. The lowest one that you want to acquire that's right now charging you 21.99 sat, right? This gives you a little bit of discount. The thing is, you can't partially fill this order. You have to buy this whole order. So the floor is this, but it also requires a whale who wants to drop 25K. That's it. That's it. That's the only way to clear this is a whale needs to buy K based off how this is listed, which is nuts. That's like the most inefficient way to buy and sell, right? We're literally buying and selling like a weird garage sale. It's insane, right? And this is kind of the other challenge that you see with this UI and UX is that A, it's awful. B, this is not an actual efficient marketplace. Excuse me, by any means, right? This is like nowhere near the vision we wanted of the future. And at the same time, we're still pounding through it and getting really good volume because the volume is huge on this stuff. Just to let you know, like, again, Arctic is by far the winner on volume. It's already at 76 BTC. Satoshi Nakamoto at 50. Wenko Menko at 40, which is crazy considering their small supply, right? We've seen a few other bets, but it's a pretty large drop off from there. Wall Street Bets, Bitcoin Pepe, Tickers Elsa, Ordinals Are Dead. They're all kind of sub 10 BTC. These are kind of the real three outliers in volume, and I think you're going to see a few more enter. We should see Runestone and Dog Goes to the Moon. We should see Prometheans with their decentralized token, and I'm sure a handful of the other pre-mines are probably going to go out closer this week. The other thing that we want to see is that data is also pretty hard to find, right? It's actually hard to find market caps. It's hard to find charting data. That's how sad this infrastructure is. But there also are other great tools. I'm a big fan of Jenny Data. Again, it shows you all the key details you want, kind of the key splits. But again, it's missing charts. We're missing charts everywhere. That's probably one of the other big things that is bothering people, right? Exactly, Apoa. Where the hell are charts? And this is kind of why you're realizing here it's going to be very, very sad, right? Because we're missing the basic infrastructure to trade, right? We're not even giving degens the tools they want. We need them to have charts so they could do their amazing charting analysis that they could then, shill to their, 80 people in their Telegram group of why you need to buy right now. But we don't even have that. And that's what it shows you the infancy of this market. I know that might sound bearish initially, but this is actually one of the most bullish things ever. It's because now this is going to probably, scare off a lot of people. But what this means is that this is going to be a huge need for infrastructure and better tooling to come. And this means the wave of BTC infrastructure is about to be upon us. And this also leads to the larger narrative we'll be talking about here in the next few weeks, and actually essentially starting tomorrow. This is where you want to start farming. You're going to have all of these amazing protocols that want you to have interaction with what they're doing, where they're building, where they're going. And the truth is that we don't even have basic trading tools yet. We don't even have great swap protocols yet. We don't even have the Uniswap of BTC. Imagine whoever wins the Uniswap of, runes, how valuable that protocol is probably going to be. Probably a shit ton, because Lord knows I don't want to keep using Lux and Jenny, right? Like, a huge amount of money is going to be coming into that. This is why we're bullish on MotoSwap. I still can't believe MotoSwap didn't build their tooling for runes. I can't believe they're only building it for CBRC20. I would have loved, right, a MotoSwap experience on runes here as well. But mind you, people are coming, right? This is also why I was bullish on LFG. They're now the Mystic. Mystic is what they're called, mystic.com. They gave out that 1,000 Mystic bonus point booster earlier, but they're essentially trying to build Uniswap for runes and aiming to be one of the first. And this is where you could start figuring out where you want to start capturing your allocations here as well. But the other thing we're starting to see is that in this lack of infrastructure, pre-runes have always been the play. So there's still pre-rune entry points. And I want to talk about that really quickly. Assuming the snapshots have not happened while I've been on this call, let's just quickly refresh this. If any of these prices dump, we'll know. So Promethean still has not done their snapshot from what we understand. So again, you have an ability that's a little bit higher price entry here at 0.06, but this would be getting you the number 2 allocation here. The only slight red flag on Prometheans is we do not know their exact allocation strategy. And what I mean by this is that they're not giving all 21,000 holders of Prometheans an equal pro rata share of their coin. They're going to give some to their team. They're going to give some for other aspects of the business. So this might be the only small bearish signal. I don't think it's a bad thing they're doing, but we know this market. They're like, hey, give us shit. Don't take any from us, right? So we'll see how that comms come out. But generally, this is the number 2 rune, right? Pretty bullish here, and hence still holding a good price. The second one that's still a sub 10 rune that you could get into is Rune Door. This is from Buoyant Capital. This is a capital arm, and it looks like a venture studio. They were the ones who actually ended up buying the Runestone's initial image for 8 BTC. So they have that. And then they essentially did this large airdrop with Rune Doors. And they're now doing a combination where Rune Door gets X value. It gets around like 300,000-ish tokens. But if you own a Runestone, you also get 100,000 tokens. And if you own both a Runestone and a Rune Door, you get a total of 600,000. There's another 200,000 in bonus points, roughly. These are the rough numbers. There's a little bit of fuzziness there, but it generally gets you into the ballpark there. So again, if you own none of these, the easiest, smartest buy, if you're betting on allocation upside, would be Rune Doors, because that would get you the largest allocation. If you then bought a Rune Door, you could then buy a Rune Stone if you want. But remember, Runestone has already done its first snapshot. I'm actually amazed it's holding this price point here around 0.035 because its only value right now is on secondary snapshots at the moment. Yes, Runestone will have 2 more tokens as on the parent side, but the way that Leonidas has shared this with us, the likelihood of those tokens is probably like 3, 6, 9 months away. Like realistically, 6 or 12 months away. So what's interesting here is that you're seeing some of these assets holding value. But you know what's also really interesting and probably worth taking a look at is the RSIC meta protocol. And the reason for this is not because you're trying to get into RSIC's first token, which is already out. What's interesting is Arsec also has a second token, and Season 2 is now upon us. And Arsec won not only the number 8 rune, they also have the number 21 rune. And that's what's pretty bullish about Arsec and why they're holding a secondary price. I'm not sure why Runestone's still holding this kind of secondary price, considering that they don't have a clear second token or name that's been claimed. But gives you a little bit of insights of what we can see in this market here and what's kind of going on, right? So with this, right, what you want to figure out if you're actually looking, right, for entry still into a sub 10 rune, you could go in via these pre-rune assets, which tend to be a little bit more valuable. To be very honest, if you have the capital to afford, at this point, I would take one Promethean over a Rune Door and a Runestone fused together. The real reason for that is we don't know how well Buoyant Capital is going to be able to scale the marketing for their number 9 token, right? But what we do know is Prometheans with Provenance at number 2 clearly have a narrative and an edge here as well, right? And this is kind of why you want to realize that all of these assets are going to have really interesting upside, right? But at the same time, you want to choose your provenance and choose where you want your bets. If you're all here this early, your biggest thing is get a small bag of these small sub 10 runes. And if you don't have the capital to buy again here on some of these assets, right, you could still go to Unisat and buy partial pieces, right? Even if you wanted Arsic, you could get 2100 Arsic for $31 if you really want. Yeah, that's probably too low of a buy. Let me see if anyone split one. Yeah, see, no one's really split it. Might be a good valuation to start doing like $50,000. Honestly, someone should split their R6 and like sell them at 50,000 chunks at like 3 sats higher, and I wouldn't be surprised people buy it, right? Because if you had a 50,000 chunk, it'd be around like $770 to buy. That would probably be an interesting entry point. But again, if you do have $2,000 or $3,000, right? Again, I know it's a little more money, right? There is the ability to enter into these kind of elements like Arsic. Again, you could also enter into Satoshi a lot cheaper to potentially enter into Satoshi. You can get 100 of these, right, for $500 here at the moment right now. Again, find where your conviction is. I've been primarily going for non-pure meme coins. I want to be very honest. I think meme coins are interesting, but I really want an entity building on top of it, right? And that's kind of like an important thing here as well, is that choose whatever you think your thesis is. I am much more bullish on Runestone and Arsic than almost any of the other sub 10 runes because they're native ordinal communities and have their own ordinal advantages. I still put Prometheans kind of one tier below them, not because I don't think they're going to be positive. I think they're actually going to do really great, like generally overall, but they don't have as much embedded history and culture with ordinals. So I feel that they might take a little bit longer to march up, but their current floor price clearly showcases something a little bit different, which is positive, right? What we're now trying to understand here, right, is that when we're this early, and because there hasn't been a clear shelling point, the shelling point ends up becoming early provenance, right? So right now it's all about sub 10 rune. So if you do not have current allocation to a sub 10 rune or ownership of a sub 10 rune, you are probably playing this game wrong. And I know it's a little bit more capital here, but right, the reason is that your biggest opportunity was you could have got it in his pre-runes, right? You could have gotten rune stones early, you could have gotten Arsic somewhat early, you could have got a few others early, right? There's so many more interesting elements there. But again, if you miss those waves, you could still buy when this UI sucks, because it means 90% of people are here. And I mean, this UI is only going to suck for about 1 to 2 more days, right? And I think that's going to be really, really interesting and really, really bullish overall. And I'm really curious to see where this is going to move as this market kind of goes. But this is kind of the other alpha. The UX is going to get a lot better, which means a lot more buy pressure is going to come in. Why do we know that? Well, it's because of Magic Magic Eden is saying tomorrow their Rune's platform is unlocking directly. So they put out this tweet. They're trying to hype it up. This happens tomorrow. Again, Magic Eden can't really fuck up at this point because let's be honest, the market's so bad that they just have to barely clear it, right? Again, if they just use their basic UI, we're already happy here. And this is where you might start seeing a lot more liquidity here, right? Kind of start moving into these assets because Unisat still sucks to buy sell. Again, I don't know if Magic Eden is solving that. They are partnering with Luminex, but I don't really understand, are they improving the buy sell process of the batching? Because that still seems to be the clearest hurdle. But no matter what, Magic Eden's going to bring way more liquidity in when it gets landed on their homepage, and DGens can now, with just a couple of clicks, get access, right? Which I think is really important. Yeah, Freeman, I think Pups wanted number 13 on purpose. I think that was actually a bad play by Pups. They should have went into sub 10. Providence is always super, super clear. I'm still very bullish on Pups, but they lose out in that conversation. It was also very similar. What was the team that ended up being the number one token minted on the next block? I forget who did that. The team name is Blake. Oh, Gob. I think Gob made a massive misplay on that logic, right? No one cares who's the number one inscription on the next block, right? Like, you're still going to show up as your total overall inscription number on all the indexers. Massive misplay by them as well, too. But it'll be interesting, right? Like, it's going to be really hard here, right, to understand where the meta is. But because there isn't a clear shelling point, early Providence will be that. And it's now going to be another massive race because guess what? Centralized exchanges are coming. They want this volume on their platforms. And that's the other reason why we want to get bullish. So Gate.io is probably one of the first to be a mover here at the moment right now. They've already listed Satoshi, and then yesterday they've just noted new listing. They put Wanko Manko runes up. Holy shit. They put the fucking furry token up to the top, which is kind of nuts, right? But yes, welcome to a world where Gate.io is actually leading on the centralized exchanges to push this. Correct. Meme Economics is also listed. Those are the three listed. Satoshi, Meme Economics, and now Wanko Manko runes. And that's just the beginning. And this is the other reason why you want to start getting sub 10 runes, in my opinion, because all the outsiders won't know what else to buy, right? It will be the easiest thing for people to tell them what should you buy. It's the exact same conversation. Sub 10 runes. Oh, I'll get some Satoshi. Okay, I'll get this dog goes to the moon. This is cute, right? Whatever it may be. Almost all of these things will rotate very easily in that first wave. And it's when these centralized exchanges really start coming, it gets bigger. And Gate.io is an awesome first step. Already bullish here on this kind of first step here, right? But here's the other reason why we all should get super bullish. Binance. Binance tweeted this out yesterday. And for many people, this looks like puppets. That's what a lot of people think this is. They're iconic, like two eyes, their smiley face. Again, pretty hard to do with ASCII art, but again, if we're actually looking at this, here is what is pretty bullish. Is that, oh my god, they at least put a Bitcoin logo in here. Clearly, runes are coming to Binance here. If that is the case, this is huge. And again, I think a lot of people are going to have access to this. So here's the other reason I said earlier, why would I take Prometheus if I had to choose right now, and if I had 0.06 BTC, and I had the choice between buying a Promethean or a Runestone and and a Rune Door, I would absolutely choose the Promethean. And the real reason why I would choose the Promethean is because of their strategic advantage of them partnering with Memeland. Memeland getting 2% of that is very bullish. And remember, what is Memeland listed by? Binance. They're one of the first Binance winners. They're the ones that get this all going. So if there's any chance that Prometheus could maybe get a Binance listing, it might be this relationship here, which is really bullish. Again, pure conjecture. They have not said anything about this, but look at kind of the stuff that's kind of lining up, which is really interesting. So we don't know when the Promethean snapshot is. It's not been announced yet. We don't know where it is, but it has not happened yet. And that's kind of the important thing. It would the only bearish thing that could happen is if like these idiots already took the snapshot and didn't tell people. Like that would be an idiotic move, but I don't think that's the case. So Promethean is absolutely up. Yeah, it might be a dog. I don't care. All I care about is Bitcoin lists something. If I'm sorry, Binance lists something. If you list any Rune token, oh my god, we're going to the moon, right? Oh, another great one here as well, right? You're seeing more dogs. But again, this could connect to anything, any other dog token on Solana and all the other stuff. The clearest signal we have is this tweet with the Bitcoin logo from Binance. Holy shit. Remember, when these exchanges unlock, 10x plus opportunities are coming in terms of the volume, liquidity, and all those elements here. Again, this is probably your last chance to get into sub 10 runes before these centralized exchanges and before Magic Eden opens tomorrow. So for me, what am I trying to do is I'm trying to continue to increase my exposure to those sub 10 runes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying non-sub 10 runes aren't going to run. Wanko Manko's 889, right? There are ones right outside of the number 10, right? There's Pups at 13. I think Wizards have like 16 or something like that. But again, they're just another deviation, right? They're just another deviation for degens to understand what should I buy, right? And that's the other reason why I don't put Magic Internet Money also high on my list. I think they're number 30. And I might be fading that incorrectly. And I want to let you know, like, I think that's one of the best ticker symbols. But because they didn't win that early conversation, and I'm not sure how fast they're going to be able to move on the airdrop, they also feel like they're a little bit on the outside. And I think this is actually going to be Pup's largest challenge is when are they going to do all of the merging and fusion of this to turn it into a single universal token, which I think is going to be really fascinating, but it's also a very hard thing to pull out. So right now, you're kind of at a very interesting opportunity here, right? And what you recognize is the fact that because you're early, there's still opportunities amongst this. And here's the real take I want to share, right? I think this is kind of what you want to realize is that this market is massively immature for the amount of capital that wants to be poured into it. That is bullish. What you essentially see here is that there are people who are trying to drive piles of money and they're being turned away. It doesn't mean that they won't come back. It actually means it's going to absolutely come back, right? Which is going to be meaningful. And I think this is kind of where you want to kind of take an idea of how do I beat the rest of the market here? Your first opportunity was pre-rune plays, right? I've been a runestone maxi pretty much since day one of this conversation. I've been telling you guys to get runestones over the counter on Wales Market since $400. That was always a clear play, but that was more of a clear play to me for another reason. I just love the vision, right? I love the idea of a fair drop. I still think that's one of the most compelling narratives long term when you realize how fair that distribution was compared to everything else on Bitcoin before. um, I applaud that quite a bit, and that was the other reason why it also had my unwavering support. The mistakes I made is I probably shouldn't have rotated as much out of my RSIC as I did. Thankfully, I still got a bunch of RSIC drop because I held RSIC for a decent chunk of time while they were mining. So I'm now fixing that problem by buying RSIC on secondary. So I've been buying quite a bit. Usually I've been lucky enough to buy around under sub 20 sats initially. I think my last buy I did was at 21 sats at that price point. And I'm just trying to accumulate more. I do have a few blind spots, right? My blind spots is I have very little Satoshi Nakamoto and very little meme economics exposure at the moment. I actually faded those because I've been fading meme coins really hard. I'm like the world's worst person when it comes to meme coins. So I think there's meme coins are more likely going to be the largest wins, right, in the short term. And again, like huge bullish elements that I want to give credit to when it comes to everything that these meme coins are launching. Like, give credit to what Satoshi Nakamoto and meme economics have achieved as generally fair mints. They did 20% pre-mine, but again, sub 10 runes, accessible to all, made it a little bit more fun, which I think is really bullish. I actually do have Fehu, but I don't recommend Fehu anytime soon. It is now 15% minted out realistically if you look at that supply. We talked about it earlier on this, right? But I really am not focused on that at the moment right now. I think meme coins will have huge wins. I won't be the person to tell you meme coin. I'll be the person asking you to explain what the fuck the meme is, right? That's that type of person here. But what I'm really bullish on in this market is knowing that early provenance on runes is the clearest shelling point now. And because of that, and a lot of the early sub 10 runes were pre-runes, I'm even more bullish on that as well. So this is kind of where I'm trying to get more exposure, right? I should have more Prometheans exposure than I do right now. I'm trying to get a little bit more liquidity set up before the snapshot. I probably went in too much on runestones, but I have to wait until that airdrop comes. I kind of took all my last liquidity to do my last play where I bought, and it was actually I think a really smart play. I ended up buying 5 runestones right before the snapshot and then dumping them all right after the snapshot for pretty much 50% returns. So I got entry into runestone at like 0.035 for the full first airdrop. I think that's going to be killer. I think the first airdrop is going to easily be worth 0.1 BTC, but I really think it's going to be closer to 0.15 BTC for that initial airdrop claim. So I feel like that's a very clear 3-4x. I think Prometheans, because what's really bullish about Prometheans here and why I would consider it the next one I would be aggregating for or trying to accumulate here is two things. One, it's still sitting at a nice market cap at 82 million. If you realize this was very similar to the market cap Arsic had. So if you're buying into this at 82 million, assuming they don't totally fuck you on the economics here, which I don't expect Prometheans to do, I expect them to take something like 10% and distribute the last 90% equally, right, amongst holders. That's what I'm hoping. Assuming they do that, right, they would have an argument to say that why wouldn't this 3x or 4x to that 300 million market cap just like Arsic, right? It's very similar numbers. They both have 21K supplies. They both had generally similar listing percentages. I mean, Prometheans was actually a little bit better. Of course, Arsic has way more history and provenance, which I think, of course, gives it a little bit of a leg up. But I don't see why this wouldn't be in the conversation to hold a 200 to 300 million market cap here as well, especially considering they are number 2, right? Considering they are number 2 on that provenance, it is really bullish here as well. Yeah, Senator Alpha DJ, and don't listen to Trevor. This is probably Trevor's dumbest tweet that he's ever put out. The fact I actually really dislike what Trevor has tweeted more recently on a few of these where he's over representing the value of Runestone. It doesn't need that. It doesn't need that. I don't know why these people are setting the wrong expectations for people, especially when the snapshots already happened. Don't do this. This was like the dumbest tweet for Trevor to put out because he literally put this tweet out and it was based off 2 trades. First off, since that, massive trades have happened, right? Like, don't do small sample sizes is the dumbest fucking thing ever. Literally, small sample sizes, you never tweet about that. This was Trevor's big mistake today. I don't get it. It's so bearish. He is hurting Runestone, not helping Runestone with dumb tweets like that here as well. And, the real reason I say this is that you don't want your market cap to be determined by OTC projects, because if you actually look historically, if you look at all of the pre-token sales that you could have grabbed on Whales Market, almost all of them traded like 30 to 50% higher than the listing price they actually ended up becoming. So again, I think this is something that is a massive mistake for Trevor to put out. Again, I respect Trevor a shit ton. This was just a dumb tweet. And this is, again, these guys are all going into the wrong engagement, right? It really is the wrong engagement farming, right? And this is kind of the other way here as well, right? To be very honest, these people are pushing more than they need to. And this reminds me of someone, if you remember back in the ETH days of this, if you remember how much like Gabe Layden was, essentially engagement farming on his way up on Digidaigaku, as he got hundreds of thousands of shitty followers, right, on that front. And it almost felt like the tweets weren't actually having any more meaning anymore. The tweets were literally just to hit their stupid impression counts for that day or whatever engagement metric they were optimizing for. This is kind of what it feels like. Fade shit like this, guys. Fuck people who are trying to give you extrapolated numbers and value against that. That's only going to hurt you. Whenever I try to give you guys extrapolations of any sort, I try to give you a clear comparable as a framework here, right? And that's the way that you want to be looking at this here, because this market still doesn't really know what to do. So they're kind of relying on these people, but anyone who's dumb enough to think we're going to get $80,000 per Runestone airdrop is dumb as fuck, right? And don't let anyone push that narrative, because guess what? Runestone's still going to be a massive success. Why are you fucking tarnishing it, right? Like, do not do this shit. It's so fucking stupid. So I want to really push. I really want you guys to push and call out this stuff when you see it. Not saying publicly call it out, but call it out in your mind. Don't fall for traps like this. And I say this because this is also, I have a Runestone bag, and I'm telling you this. I will not put out fucking fake numbers on this shit to get you guys to juice that shit up. Fuck that stuff. I think that you're going to see a lot of this happening now, right? And that's kind of why you really want to recognize in this market, try to stay calm, don't overreact, and have a clear thesis. So my thesis right now today is accumulate as many sub 10 runes as I can for my bag that puts me in a position when I think liquidity unlocks this week and next week, with the likelihood of Magic Eden tomorrow, and probably Binance making a move in the next 7 to 10 days. Binance wouldn't have tweeted that out if they weren't ready to make a meaningful move. It is going to be really interesting, really exciting, and there will be a few 100x winners still from today, right? There are still 100x entry points still available. This market hasn't gone anywhere. We're literally talking about one rune above a cap, people. I promise you, I said by the end of 30 days, there should be multiple billion-dollar runes. There should massively be multi-billion-dollar runes. Right now, I actually believe it's going to be Runestone and Arsic are my two bets that I have the most conviction on right now. And both of them have flaws of their own accord. I want to be very clear. I think you could make the case that Prometheans might have a chance to make that run. And then you could probably make the case that whatever Fihu, this number one rune does, might have some interesting upside. But at the moment right now, what you want to realize is portfolio management is still your alpha. Get in early, right? Like any kind of opportunity, right, is like this kind of challenge here, right? And I think this is really, really important. I'm not sure about that time center alpha. I mean, we've been early on for a very long time. We inscribed over a year ago on some of our earliest assets here. But don't get me wrong, there were very bearish elements in the on the ordinal side for quite a bit of time, right? And that's kind of the important thing you have to understand, is that this market is still generally coming out of a bear, right? We're trying to force a bull onto this, but realistically, you want to recognize that still this market is still immature. And this is kind of our takeaway as we step away from this call here today. The biggest opportunity we have in this market is none of the shit that we just talked about today. I am even more convinced after the last 2 days and the last 3 days that the most bullish thing you could fucking do in this market is get ready to farm all these protocols. We need so much infrastructure on the BTC side. We need so much value for L2 infrastructure. We need so many protocols, including swap and bridge and everything else underneath the sun, that there are going to be numerous million, if not billion-dollar opportunities. And the best part is this degen market is going to really push that forward. It is going to unlock liquidity coming through. It hasn't hit the crazy Solana meme coin, and I'm not sure it actually ever does. I think it's much more of there's going to be these 30 or so winners in this first batch, and that's kind of what this is. That's kind of how I look at it. There's going to be 20 to 30 meme coin winners of varying sizes, from 50 million to a billion market caps, a few above that, of course. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get not only pieces of that, but what you're trying to get is you want to get the protocols that will need to use one of these meta protocols for their token launches to airdrop you shit, right? Because what was the alpha in this play? It was pre-runes. Was the alpha. If you were doing any of this right, you didn't have to deal with any of the gas shit. I mean, we are kind of ended up lucking that so many of the pre-runes did get sub 10 runes, was very bullish for us. If not sub 50 runes and sub 100 runes, very bullish for us. But that was always the alpha. So why wouldn't the pre-rune framework also make sense for the entire infrastructure, right? It's not pre-rune anymore, right? It's pre-protocol. That is what you guys can now be doing. You are the early pre-protocol engagers and collaborators, because the infrastructure is absolutely going to be needed. So what you're going to see is that we'll still be having lots of conversations on runes. We'll see how this plays out. We'll still have conversations on ordinals. But essentially, starting tomorrow, we're going to go very hard into setting up farming protocols and infrastructure and process, let's say not protocols, farming processes, so that you can all be a part of what I think will be the next major win. It is getting 10 to 15 wallets across 10 to 20 protocols. If you do that, you are going to stack sats better than anyone else in this market. And that's the realest alpha, because the best part here is all of this stuff is true. You don't have to overthink this. You could literally grind MotoSwap in less than 2 weeks and hit max out on 10 wallets, and you could go on to the next thing. And that's what you want to do as you start seeing more opportunities, is that you're just going to be able to switch from protocol to protocol, and you want to be in as many tier ones as you can. The more tier ones you can get into, the better your portfolio is going to look in 6 months, in 12 months, in 24 months. Because remember, you're going to run this almost like an investor-like thesis, right? If you get 10 protocols, you expect 3 to be, 1 to 2 to be big winners. You expect 3 to be kind of mid winners, right? And then you expect the other 5, the bottom 50%, to be duds. That's how it's going to play out. But as you win on the number 1 and number 2 ones, those are going to be potentially high 5-figure, if not 6-figure airdrops, right? That is absolutely the future of where this is coming, right? We already know this playbook on ETH. We already knew this playbook on how it's going to be applied to Bitcoin. Don't fade this shit. If you have not set up farming accounts, if you have not started MotoSwap, if you've not started any of this stuff, you still have time. This is the week to get it going. So tomorrow, what we're going to have is you're going to see how I'm setting up my farming structure. I'm going to show you well beyond the tooling here as well, and more importantly, the processes and how I'm tracking stuff too. And because of that, right, hopefully from there, we'll then also have a larger conversation of which protocols are we keeping an eye out for and what are we prioritizing. But last and most importantly, we will start building out that portfolio thesis, right? We're going to talk about all these elements, and there's quite a few. Yeah, there's Zulu. There's a handful of other ones that have come out here recently. We're going to share these out, and I'm telling you, this is the best alpha. Like, don't get me wrong, runes that play your shitcoin games here and there, but a lot of you probably didn't do a lot this weekend, right? Maybe all you did if you were doing this was looking at Lunex and waiting for shit to mint out in the last couple of blocks, put a couple things in. But all between that, you could have been farming like crazy, right? Like you could have been pushing all of these kind of farmings here as well, which is great. Yeah, I'll set up a time tomorrow on the calendar, but it should be at this same time that we started at. So 23 hours from now. So it should be 12 p.m. Pacific is what I'm going to generally aim for on most of these. And the real reason for that is like my sleep schedule is still fucked. I'm sleeping at like 5 a.m. and waking up at 11 a.m. So I tend to start a little bit later in my day. But as my sleep schedule rotates back, we'll try to update to do a few earlier times, as I know that's valuable for some of you too. But we're going to try getting kind of all market covered. But what you're still seeing here is, guys, you have plenty of opportunity. You currently have a 24-hour notice or a 12-hour notice to grab sub 10 runes in the manner you can, right? You don't have to over allocate, right? If you have liquidity and you were thinking you still have a rune door play and a Promethean play, but make sure before you buy into them that you check their Twitters and make sure they didn't say screenshot, your snapshot already happened, right? Don't fall into that fucking mistake, right? That's like it. But here's the good thing. As soon as snapshot is taken on any of these, you're going to see them drop 50% or more, right? In most cases, like Prometheans does not have a secondary reason on why you would hold that asset post airdrop, right? Oh, speaking of, Henry the Great just posted a decentralized snapshot. I take it this will be announced in advance. Allocation announcement next week. Prometheus Discord holder verification coming soon, provenance and culture. So this is kind of the good thing here. They're not moving as fast. I actually think that's a little bit of a bearish thing. If we're not even getting the allocation announcement until next week, I unless that means this upcoming week. I don't know when he posted that technically, but that means that you're waiting like 10 more days for that airdrop. Then is what it clearly means. So that might be something you want to take a little bit into consideration here. Thanks for sharing this, Lucien. Yeah, it looks like you're essentially waiting for them to airdrop next week. So this is kind of why you want to like kind of keep an eye. Maybe Prometheans is not the buy now. You might want to wait the next 6-7 days. But remember, Prometheans could run up if the rest of the market runs up because of the new infrastructure that's coming out. You kind of want to see where this plays out, or this might be the other way where people want to rotate liquidity. But considering how Prometheans has done so well thus far, I don't see a lot of dip here, right? There might be an opportunity to get it all the way down to like 0.05, but realistically, it's been holding really solid here. So just consider that as you play in. We do know Rune Doors is happening today. Actually, I don't know if it's officially today, but it's happening very soon. So we want to keep an eye on Rune Doors as well. You still have opportunity, and you could buy on Unisat. And remember, buying on Unisat is great because 90% of people don't want to do that shit either, right? Which is kind of crazy. So we're going to see where all this stuff plays out. But what we want to recognize is we still all have a chance to own sub 10 runes. And a culture that cares about provenance, early inscriptions is probably the only delta of value that we true. And I usually wouldn't say this around sub 100, I think will matter a lot less. Sub 1000 will matter a lot less too. It's all an order of magnitude from here. Sub 10, though, is the clear play. So try to get some exposure here as well, right? As you kind of move into this kind of scenario. Yeah, Lucien, he might have meant this week. Technically, as an American, the way he stated it, even if he stated it on Sunday, it technically means the next week, 7 or 8 days from now, in my opinion, right? But that's why I'm not sure what country he's speaking from, right, and what he's representing as well. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. That's why you shouldn't use like next week as a statement without putting a date. That's kind of on them, but hopefully we can get some more clarity to go back into that here. Estimated block height for rune doors is 840, 430. Is that, you're saying the snapshot block height at the moment right now, Tone Wolf? I think so. Yep. So what is that? 840, 430. So we are currently at what? Actually, let's go to order pool. We are at 389. So, let's say 390, 41 blocks away, according to Epic Tone Wolf. So we got a few opportunities here. So definitely consider rune doors as an entry. If you already are holding a rune stone, you should definitely buy a rune door if you have no other exposure to sub 10 rune. I'll be very transparent. I do think of the sub 10s, Lobo the Wolf might be one of the, I don't want to say the weaker. It's not as compelling as as some of the others. And the real reason is do you think Buoyant Capital is going to have the legs and arms to make this a bigger meme token? Right? It feels like the poor man's version of Runestone in a lot of ways. So this is kind of why I'm not really sure where this is going to go, right? Where this is going to play. So spend some time here, right, on this kind of opportunity. And understand that you still have a chance to get sub 10 runes. But also understand this shitty infrastructure made the short term feel bearish. For the long term, you should be bullish. Lack of infrastructure means more protocols. More protocols means more farming. More farming means more airdrops. This is the realest opportunity in this market. I hope you guys are going to put some time into that, right? Take 20, 25% of your degen time into farming. We're literally talking 5 to 10 hours a week. This is not something that is insane. A couple hours a night, here and there, if you could spare that, you could kill it. And starting tomorrow, I am officially adding it into my calendar. I am doing 90-minute farming blocks. I will do one during the day, around this kind of time, and I'll do one in the evening, in my evening, right? Like a roughly 8 hours or 9 hours from. And I'm going to keep those set for 3 days a week, and we'll live farm together. I will show you what I'm doing. Some of this stuff will be basic for you guys to start if you're already ahead on Motive Swap, but we'll get you prepped for it. And it will be easy. You can follow my screens. We'll have Chrome running. I'll even go get a Brave browser for people just so that we can manage all this stuff together. But I'm telling you, the clearest opportunity is going to be farming and doing it as a collective group. So when you do run into a problem, we'll help you, right? When you do want to have some fun and jokes, we'll help you, right? And we'll put some good music on, or I'll figure out a way to get good music so we can enjoy it when we all have to go heads down for 20 minutes and farm this shit, right? Because that's what you want to do, is learn these patterns. And I promise you, once you, and don't get me wrong, I have ADHD as well. So when you get your ADD mind through the loop, it actually becomes super easy. Then all you have to do is put some massive great music on, or whatever gets you in the mood. I'm a hip hop music guy, or jazz, depends on which mood I am. But hip hop or jazz is usually where I'm going, and I'm trying to kick out a full hour session, 90-minute session actually, where we feel really effective on the farming we're doing. We should mature at least 10 wallets during that window on this front. So huge opportunities, people, massive alpha coming ahead. And the alpha just is get ready for protocols. You don't need anything from me outside of jumping for all these protocols that are coming and keeping your eyes sorted. There are tons of stuff coming left and right. Shout out to Tarzan and a few of you. Shout out to Prof J. You guys have been posting a lot. I'll create actually another list of us to dump potential L2 protocols in, that we could all review this together and we'll have a lot of fun, right? I say a lot of fun. I will make farming at least more fun than it usually is with this kind of social live stuff. But I promise you, if I have time to farm, you have time to farm, no matter what. If I have time to farm, you have time to farm. So I will sell my soul and join you guys and farm this shit like crazy. And guess what? We are going to own massive airdrops to five to 10 of the largest Bitcoin protocols in the next year. That's how I'm betting on this. And I believe if we get 5 of the largest airdrops in the next 12 months, and we do that with 10 plus wallets, each one of those should be mid 5 figures to potentially low 6 figure airdrops. That is insane, people. There is tons and tons of opportunity. You guys are all killing it. You guys are all helping in wonderful ways. I massively appreciate it. This community is amazing. I really want to thank you all for just sharing your insight, helping each person. That's all this is keep stacking sats, right? And that's the beauty. And we'll share more about Ronan. Ronan's next claim will be coming up here soon. A lot of you are now getting the next wave roll. There's more of these to come. We want to honor you guys as you continue to help the community, as you continue to showcase your stacking sats. You're all going to win. And that's the best part. We're not asking for a dime from you. We want you to continue to make sure the sats that you capture stay in your wallet and you add way more. Do that, you'll get up way more upside here across the board. With that all, I'm going to let you go. We're almost at 90 minutes here. Appreciate you guys. I know runes were slow out the gates, but it will pick up. It means we have more time to make more strategic plays, get some sub 10 runes, get some good plays, and get your farming wallet ready. And we're going to kill it over these next few months. With that all, we're going to let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll chat soon. Keep stacking sats. Bye now.